Hello world of YouTube, and welcome to List Week 2021, where I'm going to be changing up the structure that I drop these list videos. I would normally do worst albums, best songs, best games, best albums, or I would switch songs and games. At least is what I did last year. But this year, we're going to change the pacing a little bit, since I'm not doing a movie list yet again this year, because I didn't see enough movies to make a whole list about it. I'm going to start with the one non-music list today, my top 11 games I played in 2021, and then we're going to do best songs tomorrow, then worst albums, and best albums, and I hope that you're excited to see it. But today, like I said, favorite games I played in 2021. Really good year for gaming for me. I played a lot of games that I thoroughly enjoyed, both old and new. And a lot of the new releases happen to be in pretty niche shit that I really like, and came together pretty well. At least were pretty good releases by and large. There's still some stuff I still didn't even get to play that came out this year. Obviously, I didn't get a PS5, so games like Deathloop I didn't get to play. I didn't get to play Halo Infinite because I didn't get a new Xbox. I didn't play Psychonauts 2 as much as I really wanted to, because by the time it came out, it was kind of under my radar. I was wrapped up in a lot as it was, and I didn't play Far Cry 6 because, you know, I haven't played it with Shake yet, and that's my partner in crime, my crime pal, my cash buddy, du jour. And we played 5 together, and New Dawn, so we're gonna play 6 together at some point. But yeah, I still played a lot of games that I really like, so let's go ahead and break down my games of the year.
It's actually interesting. The bottom spot in this list was easily the hardest it's been to pull together out of any of these Game of the Year lists that I've done. And that's because I really did like a lot of what I played this year. But if there was one thing that solidified with me, that stuck with me, even at the end of the year, was that at least in the very beginning of the year, Capcom was throttling in some really good cylinders. Because not only did they have the successes that I'll talk about later on in this list, but they brought back a franchise from the dead in glorious splendor in the form of Ghosts and Goblins Resurrections, a platformer that is tough as nails, just like all the entries in the franchise, but I just couldn't get enough. There's some small design tweaks that add some quality of life improvements to this game by and large, or to this play style by and large. I think the art style is charming as fuck, and I really like the difficulty that this game throttles with. I even like that there's a scale of difficulty more so than in any other entry of the franchise. This feels more like an entry point into the series than anything else they've designed with this franchise in mind in the past, because it is still very hard. It's very troll-like in some instances, but I just couldn't get enough of the punishment, and that's why it ended up on the bottom. It's a very great game from earlier in the year that I had a hell of a time combing through, and I couldn't, that memory would not leave the more that I sat down to make this list, and that's why it ended up on the bottom. Admittedly, there was a lot of shit that came out this year that was just way up my alley, and one thing I didn't really expect to drop this year was a sequel to a game that I covered last year, Neo: The World Ends With You, a game that I'll admit did not hook me quite the same that the first game did, but I wanted to give it a second chance. And upon really sinking my teeth into it again, I found myself even more invested in the mystery that did hook me initially, but whose world just didn't hit me quite the same as the first game did. I don't know if it's because that perspective shift really feels like it's broken in what world I had grown to know, or the combat switch up just was very different, but I admittedly was not gelling with this game as much as I wanted to the first time, and I really tried. But I'm walking away with it, putting on this point in the list, and being okay with that. And I think part of it's because the game still retains the spirit of the original, even if there are some big shifts in perspective, style of story, and themes throughout the story. I shouldn't have expected it to be a sort of tangential piece rather than try to speak on different things within culture, similarly to what the first game did. And it does do that pretty fucking well, at least throughout the parts of the story that I've gotten through. I'll admit, I haven't beaten all 3 weeks, but I do like that there is more story here, there's seemingly more world building going on, and they're really wanting to create a bigger narrative experience with this game. And given how such sort of oddity the first game was, I'm glad that they're giving this world that I did really enjoy the first time around of the Reapers game more to grow from in this new entry. And so I'll at least give it that. It may not have hooked me quite like the first time, but it still was compelling at its core. And I really like that about it. You know, not only was it a big year for other Nintendo franchises, it was also a big year for Pokemon, and I did indulge a bit in the celebration of Pokemon, as well as other Nintendo franchise. And not only did we get a pretty well done remake in the form of the Gen 4 remakes for Pokemon, but we got a great sequel that built upon the foundations to a nostalgia bomb in the form of New Pokemon Snap, a game that I also reviewed on the channel months ago, if you remember, and I still enjoyed the experience that this game gave me, full stop. You know, like I said in my review, it expanded upon the foundations seen in that 90s classic so very well that I feel like made it an even better step forward for what this franchise could be potential-wise. The ability to level up areas to unlock different paths, the variety of Pokemon within those paths can evolve. The shit that you can do with the items at hand also just feels all the more, you know, open to the player in a way that the first Pokemon Snap had in some bits, but this feels like just a full-blown safari, and I really like that about it. You know, the story still feels very similar to the story of the first Pokemon Snap, but it's also still just a little bit different. I like what bits of nostalgia they do throw in there, and I feel like, again, just created a worthwhile expansion on a game that so many people see beloved. It's a fantastic game that I honestly was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it, given my opinion on the original Snap has kind of plateaued off. I may have taken a break from my show Roguelike Run, only premiering an episode during the marathon, but I really enjoyed the roguelikes that I played this year, and as you guys may already know, I really like Slay the Spire, so card roguelikes and me have a pretty special relationship, and Griftlands has a great expansion on any sort of foundations that could be seen within a game like Slay the Spire, because it's not just about building a physical deck, it's about building a deck of conversation, it's about quests, it's an RPG experience with card deck building and roguelike runs embedded in their core, and they create this great synergy of learning this world through your runs, even if your quest lines don't necessarily adapt all that much throughout your runtime. I still think a lot of what's here and what Clay brought to the table with their animation front is charming. You know, I like Clay's animation style a lot. I think Mark of the Ninja is really cool. I think Shank are two really fun action games, and I feel like their art style works really well for this science fiction dystopia that they're showing off here. You know, I think that there's a good level of depth to a lot of the relationship building that happens in this game. I think that the deck building aspect is also focused on incredibly well, and I feel like, again, it just creates this world building balance that kept me coming back every single time. This is actually one of the few roguelikes where I do the daily challenges just to see what new shit they'll throw at you that's different, you know, as far as having different play styles, because there's so much variety here. I really like this game, and I feel like while I didn't spend as much time as I even would have liked, every time I sat down with this game, I had a great time doing so. You know what? I like a good underdog story. I like seeing a company pick itself up by its bootstraps and deliver on a worthwhile package. And amidst the pre-release controversy and all that sort of stuff, I walked away having a really good time with Turtle Rock Studios' Back for Blood. It scratched an itch I really wanted scratched for a long time. I had a lot of fun playing this game with Shake. Sure, it's definitely harder than Left 4 Dead in a lot of instances.
And I will say some of the complaints the game has received about it feeling a little more soulless than Left 4 Dead do feel a bit more apt. I was actually talking to Shake about this exact subject in a recent Cash Boys that'll be going live soon. But in spite of that soulless feeling at points and some of that charm being missing, I like a lot of what this game has going on.
I feel like the deck building mechanic adds a good level of depth to the game that Left 4 Dead didn't have. Shooting in this game feels great. I think that the level design is pretty well done as well, and I have enjoyed combing through this game. Again, it is a lot harder than Left 4 Dead at points. It feels very overwhelming at points with how much shit they throw at you, but I can't say that this game is bad. It's actually really, really good. and that was kind of a big surprise to me that I liked this as much as it did, but it was a pleasant surprise, because again, I like a good underdog story, and even though Turtle Rock was recently acquired by another big gaming company, I hope that this doesn't spell any bad news for the company in the future. I hope that they keep developing games, and I'm glad that Back 4 Blood just works in a way that Evolve didn't. And I wish them nothing but success with this game in the future. Listen, I know I've gone through this before, but every year I get new subscribers who may not know how things work around here. And to those watching this now asking, Johnny, why do you post your year-end list in January? Why not do it in December with everybody else? Well, at this point, it's mostly for Yacht Club Games, because not only did they drop a banger in the beginning of the year that I'll be talking about here in just a few minutes, but they also dropped their first non-in-house developed Shovel Knight game in the form of Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, and I can't put it the fuck down. It's a falling block roguelike, combining two different genres of games that I really enjoy. I love falling block puzzle games, you guys probably already know that, but I like how Vine, the creators of this game, managed to turn that experience into a dungeon crawling adventure. I love the charm in this game. The pixel art's different enough from Shovel Knight's typical outings that it feels like a fresh adventure. You know, the boss fights are well replicated in this world. The challenge is very much there. A lot of my runs are very short, but I like being able to progress through by also buying warps to other levels. I love that even amidst those warps, you're gonna find different shit, different bosses pop up, and it just creates a roguelike experience in the world of Shovel Knight, a world that I am very well versed in at this point. And as somebody who really loves what Yacht Club did with those Shovel Knight games, I like that they're also entrusting the series in good hands in Pocket Dungeon, because the music remixes are great. The playstyles amongst the different knights also feels really well articulated. And again, that level of progression, that growth of Shovel Knight still feels felt, even in a falling block, puzzle, dungeon crawling, roguelike experience. It's a mouthful of a genre, but it's a great game with a lot of charm that I still can't put down. You'll hear me say this in a handful of points throughout my list this week on List Week 2021, but I've been facing a lot of grief. You guys know that by and large. And one place I got it from a surprising source that was actually incredibly helpful was in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy have some really serious and sincere moments amongst their ranks, and they have some pretty dark stories to tell, but I didn't expect the place that some of this story went. As someone who was going through a lot of shit this year, it actually helped bring me out of some of the funks that I was in, and I really enjoyed my experience with this game from a story perspective. And on top of that, while it's a bit buggy, the game itself is actually really fucking fun. And the combat, while not quite as open and robust as you might expect from a team-up game like this, I think that they made it work really well, and again, helped it reinforce some of the themes of the story's trying to go for incredibly successfully. I think this game was a huge surprise to me. I didn't expect to like this game this much, but I actually really liked the story that this game had going on. I liked combing through the levels to find the other costumes and unlockables. I actually really liked a lot of what this game had to offer. If there was one AAA title that I feel like nobody should sleep on, ironically enough, it is the game from the company that fucked up the Avengers last year with their, own Avengers tie-in game. But this Guardians game, it works. It works really well. And it's honestly a great balance of fun and seriousness, like the movies. The soundtrack's great as well. It's everything I would want out of a Guardians of the Galaxy experience, with the added dose of helping me personally get through some shit that I've been going through. So thanks, Square Enix, you fucking bastards. Listen, I know I already said it way earlier on in the list, and I'm not done saying it yet, but Capcom had a really good year. Because not only did they bring back Ghosts and Goblins, but they made another great Resident Evil game. I don't know what Capcom's doing right now, but they seemingly know how to make Resident Evil work. Because even the 3 remake has its defenders. For as average as I thought that game was, it did have some good moments. But Village does a great job at not only continuing the story from 7, but integrating it into the world of the rest of Resident Evil, the madness that Resident Evil has been up to this point. You know, like I said in my Expectations reality review, which I'll link on screen now if you want to hear me talk more about why I really like this game. But I think that this was another great notch in this franchise's belt. I really enjoyed the story. I like how it also continues threads from 7 and brings a lot of them to a good bookend here. I like the set pieces. I think that some of them are some of the best that the series has had thus far, which, given this is the 8th mainline, or 9th, I guess technically, mainline entry in the series, the fact that they're still creating some classic sequences within here is really great to see. I like a lot of what the adventure here has. Is it perfect? No, but it's damn near close. And I even like how they're trying to bridge it stylistically with some of the other franchises' most beloved entries in the form of some of the aspects from 4 that are coming in here. I like that Mercenaries is back. There's just a lot in this package that I think, even if it doesn't all come together, I like that they're trying to integrate it in what they're wanting to do with the franchise now. And I like that about it, you know? It's not my new favorite entry in this series, and obviously it's not my game of the year, but I still think it was a damn good entry in a long-standing franchise, which some that have been around as long as Resident Evil don't have the pleasure of saying that they still make shit this good at this point in their career. So kudos to you, Capcom, for making a damn fine, terrifying experience in the form of Resident Evil Village. You know, not only was it a good year for Capcom, it was also a great year for Yacht Club Games, because not only am I putting Shovel Knight Showdown on this, but if you guys caught me streaming earlier this year, you know I really liked Cyber Shadow, their first published entry that had nothing to do with Shovel Knight. They saw something in Mechanical Head, let them develop this really challenging indie platformer in the vein of a melding of Castlevania and Metroid, but not in a Metroidvania sense. It's still very Shinobi influenced in storytelling as well, and I love that about this game. I think that the world that they put you in is very fully realized. I feel like the story is so well told. I loved seeing the mystery being pulled from me the more that I progressed through this world. I thought the boss fights were memorable. I thought that the level design was also memorable and showcased a level of depth when it came to revisiting it. To those that mastered it, they had a completely different way to tackle every single level. I feel like there were some really memorable set pieces. The soundtrack, as you'll hear me say later on this list week, was also fantastic. I think that this was an early game that came out this year that should not have been slept on. It was an incredible masterclass in level design, combat, and challenge, flowing together harmoniously. I feel like if you enjoy a good challenging action platformer, look no further than Cyber Shadow. Easily my favorite indie game that came out this year. I think that this is a fantastic experience that is fucking offered at highway robbery prices. Just look into it. Again, it's Yacht Club. They seemingly know quality by and large, as exhibited by my entries on this list, and how much I've gassed the fuck up out of Shovel Knight. So give Cyber Shadow a shot. I don't think you'll be disappointed if you like this sort of thing. Like I've said a couple times in this list already, Capcom has actually had a pretty fantastic year, which I'm happy to say as a fan of this company's output. Not only did they bring back a franchise in a really prominent way, they made another notch in the belt in a franchise that I really, really love. They also made what I would describe as one of the quintessential worthwhile experiences in a franchise that I still feel like doesn't quite get the love it deserves, in the form of Monster Hunter Rise. This is what I wanted Monster Hunter World to be, by and large. I feel like the clear distinction between different types of missions in the hub world is all you really needed to do. But the fact that the multiplayer works better in this game than it did in World, I think that the movement in this game, thanks to the Palamuts and the wire bugs, is a great gateway for newcomers into the series. I feel like the overall showcasing of the potential for experimenting in weapon class types is even more focused in this game. I got to try a new weapon class in this game out of morbid curiosity, and it's a new favorite of mine. I've made some of my favorite armors in this game. I think that the weapons are fantastic. I think that the hunts are really, really fun to do because it's easy for others to join you and because movement is even more streamlined in this entry. I think that this just does Monster Hunter in a way that I feel like everyone should experience. For a franchise that I've always liked, or not always, but I've liked for a long time and don't really gush about, I feel like this is the game to show to people. If you want a game that's just fun to sit down with your friends and tear through big-ass beasts to make cool weapons, Monster Hunter Rise is here for you, and I feel like it's easily one of the best cooperative experiences I've had this year. You know, I had some real walls that I reached in the realms of hunting, and it was nice to be able to just to grab some friends, jump in, and not only have them help me, but I was able to help them and return the favor, and it felt great. I also got resources from that. I don't know, also the integration of the Palamute into combat just gave the combat in this game even more depth, and I also really appreciated that. I feel like this is just a company still experimenting with a franchise that they want to succeed and just nailing it on the head, full stop, this time around with Monster Hunter Rise. I mean, what else would it have been? It's the year where I've conceivably lost all interest in anything else that wasn't Metroid in anticipation for this game, and in my opinion, Metroid Dread delivered full stop on a Metroid experience that I have been wanting since getting into this franchise with where it left off. Sure, I had the Prime trilogy to hold me over, even though I've only played 2 of those, not including Hunters and all the other side stuff, and Other M is a thing. But as far as continuing Samus's story is considered, I couldn't have asked for a better game than Metroid Dread. In a decade where the genre that Metroid helped flourish out has had a proverbial renaissance, I love that the queen of the genre still holds her crown, because the world of Metroid Dread is so fun to explore. As a longtime fan of this series, I like the wrenches it throws and traditional mindsets that would set in for those that have played Metroid games and Metroidvanias since the last Metroid experience that expanded on the story. Even just the sequence at which you unlock things in this game is just weird, and I love that about it. But I love the other wrenches it throws into the fray as well, like the Emmys. I think the Emmys are a really nice continuing mini-boss that continue to create this level of discomfort in the character that SAX did in bursts of fusion. You know, I really love what Dread does as a Metroid game. And not only does it succeed in creating an engaging world to explore in, a good loop within that world to keep going through and to give yourself a sort of footing for pacing. You know, the combat feels as fluid as ever. Samus is never controlled as well as she has in Metroid Dread. And I love that about it. You know, I loved the experience this game took me through. I liked the hoops it made me jump through. I liked the story. I liked everything about it. But are you surprised? I'm a gigantic Metroid fan. So in a year where Nintendo was finally giving a shit and celebrating a franchise it's had since its beginnings, I'm glad that Metroid Dread was as good as it was, and it is without a doubt my game of the year for 2021.
That was my list. Did you like it? What were some of your favorite games that you played back in that were released in 2021? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're wondering how I'd rank those games in tandem with all the games that I beat last year, I do plan on dropping a tier time sometime soon on all the games that I played in 2021. I hope you're excited about that. But in the meantime, anticipating for that, subscribe to see when that drops and to see the rest of List Week as it rolls out this week. And if you like this list for List Week, give it a like. If you want to see more my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons if you want to join the ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community. It's linked in the description. I'm gonna get out of here though. Thank you again so very much for watching. I've been Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.